Well, and your sexuality was still something that you weren't necessarily living into at that point, or?
Yeah, correct. During all of that time, I was very much, I like to say my coming out story is a decade long. Like, there wasn't a day when I was like, I'm gay, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it. It happened in very small incremental steps. From telling just a couple close friends at college that, again, I quote unquote, struggle with same-sex attraction, because that was the acceptable way to talk about it. I couldn't even say the words "I'm gay" because that would just mean a whole bunch of things that I didn't want people to think about me. I wanted them to know that I was fighting this thing, and like I was working with the Lord to overcome, and all of that. So while I was working at the church in Reno, when they wanted to bring me on staff, that was when I was like, I gotta let some people know what's going on, because I don't want, my worst fear would be to be brought on staff and then for someone to find out later, and then to get fired or have some kind of public shaming, horrible moment. So I told them at the get-go, I was like, look, I struggle with homosexuality. I've done all kinds of things to try and change it. I self-enrolled in Exodus. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
It was one point it was like, one of the largest conversion therapy organizations in the nation. It's now thankfully disbanded. But I self-enrolled in that, and I went to group meetings, and I went to the national conference, and like did all the steps, and just believed that I earnestly believed for a long time I was going to be able to change my orientation and be straight, because I earnestly believed that's what God wanted for me.
Right.
And so I put myself through a lot to try and make those things happen, and they didn't, unsurprisingly. Now, and so the next phase of my coming out was, and this was by the time I had moved to San Diego to start the church. I kind of said I still was trying to live into trying to be straight for a long time.
Right.
I dated some women, really tried to make it happen. And then there was a 5-year period where I just was like, I've done everything I know to do, from going to like healing services, like Pentecostal, like hit you on the head kind of services, to like pray the gay out of you. I've done 12-step programs. I've done Exodus. I've done the group therapy. I have read everything I can get my hands on about this topic. And I finally, got to a breaking point where I was like, I can't, this is killing me. It's just exhausting. And it's killing my spirit and my soul. And so I'm just going to accept that for whatever reason, I am gay, and that's not a thing apparently that I am able to change. But I still am in that time operating out of a place of a lot of fear that I would lose my community, that I would lose my place in this thing that I was very good at. Again, very good at church. And so I chose, and I was very public with this. I was like, I'm gay, and I'm choosing to be single and celibate. And I did that for 5 years. Are you familiar with the Gay Christian Network, GCN? I think that now they're called Q Christian Network. But they were, back in the day, they were called the Gay Christian Network, and they had national conferences, and it was a space where you could come as a queer Christian, and they had what they would call side A and side B, and I honestly don't remember which is which now at this point, but one of them is like people who believe that it's okay to be gay and to date, and have same-sex relationships, to be trans, to be whoever you are, and live into it, and you can still be a Christian. And then the other side was people who were like, no, God has clearly said no to same-sex relationships, so you can be gay, and then you still have to navigate around that somehow, like you can't live into it. So I was the side that, for a long time I was like, well, no, I'll be gay, but I won't live into it.
Was there a surrender? What I guess brought you to, I don't know if surrender is the right word, but kind of what brought you to that space of being okay or I don't know, like letting, I don't know, because I feel like I know that you're not maybe, like, I guess, when did you have to make a choice? Yes.
I did ultimately make a choice, and it's interesting to ask if I had to. I think it did come down to, for me, again, that acknowledgement that the way of doing life was killing something in me, that was killing something in me that needed to thrive. And I didn't I did all the research around the theological arguments, and talked myself into believing that actually the Bible has been misinterpreted and the clobber passages are not actually clobbering queer people as we understand queer people today.
Right.
I did all that work, and at the same time, I think when I finally decided, I just didn't care anymore. I just had lost lost a lot of respect over the years for both the institution of church, and even lost respect for the Bible, and at the bare minimum, at least how it had been used. But I think honestly for the Bible itself. And so I had kind of reached a point where my faith had degraded to the point where, when I finally was like, I'm suffocating and I want to be happy, I didn't really need to do a lot of personal mental gymnastics with my faith anymore, because it had just kind of like, I don't want to say completely died or shriveled up, but it was so damaged that I. Oh, hi, Anissa. Hi, Wendy. I'm sorry, I'm seeing these some of these comments come through now. My faith had just reached a point where it was, how I talked about it. It used to be just the most elevated thing in my whole life, and the thing I would always put the priority on. And just, I think over time, it was so painful and it hurt so much in so many ways that I stopped giving it that power. And by the time I decided, I was 28 when I had my first boyfriend, and at that point, I didn't feel like I was betraying God in any way, and I didn't feel like I was sinning or any of that. All of that guilt stuff, I think, had just turned. I had so much anger around it, to be honest. I was just so angry at all the hurt for so long that I was happy to just kind of give a big middle finger to all of it and say, nope, I'm turning around and I'm just going to live the life that I want to live now, instead of the one that I've been told to live for my whole life.
Yeah. How did you address that, or how did you cope with that anger? Or is it still there?
I was just about to say, how am I still coping with that anger?
Right.